Imagine, it's minus 30 degrees outside. No stores, no fridge, no food delivery. The ground is frozen solid. The river is nothing but ice, and you still have 5 more months to survive. What would you eat? Today, we're going to discover how people survived long winters without a single refrigerator. What they ate. How they kept food from spoiling for months. And why one mistake in autumn could put an entire community at risk before spring. But one ancient food preservation method still surprises modern scientists today. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why. The most dangerous time wasn't winter. It was autumn, the most important season. That's when the community's survival for the next months was decided. From late summer on, life became a constant cycle of preparation. We needed to gather everything nature had to offer, dry it, smoke it, dry the berries, collect the nuts, prepare the roots. Before the frost sets in, when food becomes unavailable, large hunts became especially important. In many northern regions, a successful elk, deer, or bison hunt could provide food for an entire group for several weeks, provided the kill was properly processed and preserved. But experienced hunters valued more than just meat. Sometimes the most valuable asset was fat. Fat has almost twice the caloric value of protein, or, making its true strategy, energy reserves in winter. Bone marrow and visceral fat were often considered as valuable as the best cuts of meat. But getting food was only half the battle. The real challenge was keeping it safe throughout the winter. Thousands of years ago, people invented several ways to literally stop time. The first method was drying. Meat, fish, mushrooms, and berries were cut into thin slices and left in the sun, wind, or near a fire. As the moisture evaporated, it became much more difficult for microorganisms to spoil the food. The second method was smoking. Smoke not only added flavor, but also dried the surface of the food and coated it with compounds that inhibited the growth of bacteria and mold. The third method was the simplest: cold. In conditions of constant frost, nature itself turned into a giant freezer. Frozen food could be stored for months. But there was another method. To modern people, it might seem like a way to spoil food, but in fact, it was precisely this that helped people survive the harshest part of winter. We'll come back to this later. You might think that people ate only meat in winter, but that's not true. In the fall, they gathered everything they could to last for several months. Nuts, due to their high calorie content. Berries, after drying. Roots, seeds of wild plants. In some regions, grains were already grown, and the harvest was stored in special storage facilities. These underground cellars protected supplies from temperature fluctuations and animals. Archaeologists still find similar structures today. Sometimes, traces of food that's thousands of years old still remain inside food. Yet, even the most carefully planned storage facilities haven't always saved them. For many cultures, late winter was the most dangerous time. Old stores were nearly depleted, new plants had not yet emerged, big game became unpredictable. Historians call these periods the hunger season. To survive the last weeks before spring, people had to use up everything that was left. They boiled bones repeatedly to extract the remaining fat. They collected the starchy inner bark of certain trees. They ate edible lichens after special processing. In some regions, people even consumed mineral clay, likely to replenish certain elements or reduce the effects of plant toxins. But there was another strategy too. The very one I promised to tell you about. Imagine intentionally burying meat or fish in the ground for months. It sounds like a surefire way to spoil your food. But for some Arctic peoples, it was a practical preservation technology. In the cold earth, the product underwent a slow, controlled fermentation. The result is a very pungent aroma and unusual texture. To modern ears, such food may seem strange, but if the traditional technology is followed correctly, it is safe and easily digestible. The most amazing thing is that all this was done without thermometers or laboratories. People knew exactly which hole to choose, what kind of soil was suitable, and how long to wait. These skills were passed down from generation to generation, and a mistake here could be costly. At first glance, it seems like a simple tale of the suffering of winter life. But in reality, the story begins much more deeply here. For the first time, people learned to think beyond the present. They began to stockpile food, plan months in advance, preserve food, and pass on preservation techniques to future generations. The ability to maintain food has become as essential a skill as hunting itself. Every winter, people didn't conquer nature. They learned to live by its rules. Every piece of dried meat, every storage pit, every successful autumn hunt, all of this was a way to buy a little time until next spring. And the next time you open the refrigerator and grab some food, remember, the ability to store food for months was once one of humanity's greatest inventions, not because it made life more convenient, but because it allowed us to survive. If you're curious about how people survived real ice ages when the cold could last not just months but generations, let us know in the comments.